Welcome to the first episode of the How to Make a VR Game in Unity 6.2 course. This is the best place for you to get started as a beginner on making your dream VR game. In this course, you will learn how to set up a VR player in Unity with hand presence, how to listen to the controller's input, how to move with continuous movement, teleportation, climbing, how to interact with grab, ray, poke, and so much more. The course will last 6 episodes, one release each week, but even better, I will create 2 exclusive videos that I will share only on Patreon, where we will use what we learned so far to build a very cool project from scratch. And if you are watching this video early enough, you can even select the project you'd like to see in the poll down below. The support you guys give me on Patreon is what makes it possible for me to make content like this, so if you'd like to support the channel, get access to exclusive content and the source code of all of my projects for a small price, join our community, the link is in the description. I'm Valem and this is Valem Tutorials, a YouTube channel dedicated to XR development. Make sure to subscribe to not miss the next one. But without further ado, let's get started in this video on how to configure Unity for VR and making our own VR player. Okay, you read the title. In this course we will use Unity, one of the most popular game engine. There are other great game engines out there like Godot, Unreal, but in my opinion, Unity is still the best solution in terms of VR development. Okay, so let's download Unity, and to do this we can simply go to unity.com/download, and I'm on Windows, so I'm simply going to click here on download for Windows. This will allow us to download the Unity Hub. This is where you can have a look at all of your current Unity project and install any version of Unity that you want. Okay, and after going through the installation, this is what you should see, the magnificent Unity Hub. So let's get started by installing a version of Unity, and the one that we want is Unity 6.2. So if you don't already have this version installed, let's click on Install over there. Here you can see all of the version of Unity that I have on my computer, but to install a new one, we can click here on Install Editor. There you go, you should see here the latest version of Unity 6.2 available. In my case, it is Unity 6.2.3, but any version above this one should work the same way. So let's click on Install. Here, make sure that Microsoft Visual Studio is enabled. And for the platform, make sure that Android build support is enabled with OpenJDK, Android SDK, and NDK tools. This will allow us to export our game to Android supported device like the MetaQuest. Okay, next let's click on Continue. Check here the I have read and agree with the above terms and condition. Continue. We agree again. And finally, let's click on Install. If Visual Studio asks you to install something, click on Continue. We can update Visual Studio. Once that's done, we can close here this window and wait for the rest to install. Okay, and here we go, the installation is complete as you can see, and we have Unity 6.2 available amongst our installation. So the next step now is to create a new project. To do this, let's go back to our project list, click on New Projects. Here, make sure to select the 6.2 Unity version. Now, if we scroll down, we can see a bunch of templates that we can use for our project. Now, a very interesting one is here, this VR template that we can see. This template contains an already set up Unity VR project with a sample scene. I already made a video covering what you can find in this template, but even if this is the fastest way to quickly get started with a new Unity VR project, in our case, we are not going to use it. I know this is weird, but choosing this template will skip some important steps to set up VR in Unity that I want to show you and that any beginners should know about. So instead, we are going to go above and select the default simple universal 3D template. Then we can go on the right side here, select a name for our project, for example, my first VR game, and we can set it as a new local project. And if you want to, you can even edit here the location of your project. There you go. Finally, we can click on Create Project and let Unity do its magic. Okay, and after some time, this is what you should see, the beautiful Unity editor. Now, maybe you will not have the same layout that I have here, but in the case that you want to get the same layout, which is easier if you want to follow this tutorial, you can just go at the top, click on Layout, select Tool, and here simply drag the game window down here. Finally, you can reduce here the icon size of the project window to the minimum value. Next, we can click on Remove README Asset as we don't need it, then on Proceed. And if it's the first time that you are opening Unity and that you want to know a little bit about what are all these windows for, let me quickly sum it up for you. Here we have the Scene window, which is the gun mode view to quickly move around and select any object you want in your scene. The hierarchy here contains all of the objects that are present on the scene currently, and if I select one of these objects, like the main camera, I can see on the hierarchy the list of components attached to this object. Finally, we have down here the game window that can show you what the player will see once the game is finished. And next to it, we have the project window that contains all of the game data, for example the script, the texture, the 3D model, and anything else. Now, in my case, I'm going to create a new scene simply by clicking here on the plus button, go to scene, and then scene. We can rename this one main VR scene. And we can simply drag it in the scene folder over there. And now if we double click on the scene folder, we can see the two scenes that we have on this project, the sample scene that we are currently using and the main VR scene that we just created. So if we want to open this new scene, we can simply double click on it. And as you can see from here above, we are now inside this new scene. And now it is finally time to get started to build our first VR game. The first thing I'm going to do on this new scene is to add a ground for player, so we can right click in the hierarchy, go to 3D object and then go to plane. If we select this plane, we can see that the position is not at 0, 0, 0, so let's fix it by selecting the position here and writing 0, 0 and 0 on the XYZ axis. Perfect, but I don't really like here the color of this plane, so let's change it by creating a new material. For this, we can click back on the asset folder, click on the plus button, go to material and rename it ground material. Beautiful. We can drag it on our ground here. And as you can see, it will apply this new material on the plane. And we can tweak the color simply by clicking on the base color map and changing it, for example, to a black color like this. Now, if you don't like here the reflection that this plane has, you can actually reduce the smoothness. Okay, so currently we have a camera on our scene, as you can see. So the big question is our game already working in VR? And the best way to know if it's the case is to be able to actually see this scene in our VR headset. Of course, the first step to do so is having a VR headset working on your computer, like the HTC Vive, the Valve Index, or in my case, I have my MetaQuest 3 headset that I've plugged to my PC with a USB-C cable, and using here the MetaQuest link, I'm able to test PC VR game as well. Now, by the way, if you are using here the MetaQuest link, like I'm doing for MetaQuest headset, it's important to go to Settings, General, and here Enable Now Source. And if you want to learn more about how to set up the MetaQuest link, I will leave some documentation in the description. But now let me reduce this window and let's see if we are able to test VR directly on this Unity project. And don't worry, if you don't have a VR headset that can be plugged to a PC, or even that you don't have a VR headset at all, you can stick till the end of this video and I will share an awesome solution for you. Okay, so let's try to see if VR works with our project right now. If I click on play, as you guys can see, nothing happens. The game window is blue and seems to render correctly, but on the VR headset, nothing is rendered. So let's see how we can fix it. Let's leave play mode, go to Edit, Project Settings, then go to XR Plugin Management and click on Install XR Plugin Management. Okay, now that the XR Plugin Management is installed, we will be able to say to Unity that we are using a VR headset to render directly the Unity scene on the VR screen. And as you can see, now we have some settings for both desktop and Android on the XR Plugin Management. And this is where we can say the headset that we want to target. And if we want to target the maximum number of VR headset, the best solution is to select OpenXR for desktop, wait for it to install. There you go. Now go back to Android and do it as well. Beautiful. Now that we have OpenXR set as a plugin provider for both desktop and Android, you can see that we have a new settings available here, the OpenXR settings. If we click on it, we can here select the interaction profile that we want to support, which are basically all the VR headsets. So in my case, because I want to target all main VR headsets, I'm going to select them all. But maybe don't select here the eye gaze interaction profile, which we are not using. Beautiful. Now that's done for Android, we can do so for desktop as well. There we go. And the final step, in the case that you are using a MetaQuest headset like me, it is very important to go to Android and here to enable MetaQuest support. There you go. Now that we have set all of the interaction profile for OpenXR, we can close the project settings. And now let's click on play to find out if we can see our scene on our VR headset. And there it is, guys, I'm able to see inside my VR headset the Unity scene. That's awesome. But nothing happens when I move my head and the image is always the same. This is because we also need to be able to move the camera depending on the movement of the head. So let's have a look at how we can do this. Okay, so first let's leave play mode. And if we want to make sure that the main VR camera moves with the headset tracking, we can select the main camera here, click on Add Component, and add a track pose driver. Here, make sure to select the first one and not the track pose driver input system. There we go. As you can see, if we select the track pose driver, by default, it will select the headset, as you can see here, and will try to track the center eye HND reference, which is what we want. And there we go. Now, if I click on play, as you can see, it works. We can render the Unity scene on our VR headset, but more than that, we can also rotate the camera. But now that we have VR working, we of course want to do much more, having controllers, doing input, grab object, and much more, which is a lot of work. But lucky for us, Unity has created a toolkit that we can use to save us a lot of time. The Unity XR Interaction Toolkit. So let's see how we can use it in our project. We can leave again play mode, and to download the Unity XR Toolkit, we can go to Windows, Package Management, Package Manager. Here, let's click on Unity Registry and scroll down below until you can see at the end the XR Interaction Toolkit. Now, as you can see, the version of the XR Interaction Toolkit is 3.2.1. Higher version should work similarly. If there are any chance, I will let you know in the comment section down below. But if you want to make sure that you are installing the same version as mine, you can simply click on the plus button here and you can write com.unity.xr.interaction.toolkit at 3.2.1 and then click on install. Okay, and just like this, you will make sure to install this specific version of the Unity XR Interaction Toolkit. Okay, finally, once it is installed, we can go to Samples and here import the starter asset. The starter asset will contain some pre-configured component that we will need. And here you go, this is done. We are almost done with our project configuration, but there is one more thing that I need to show you. Let's close the package manager, go to Edit, Project Settings again, and under the XR plugin management, we can click on the project validation. So the project validation is a new tool that will allow you to have a checklist to see if your project is well configured for XR. As you can see, we have a list for both desktop and Android. So for desktop, if we click here on Fix All, and that we wait a little bit, there you go, you can see that everything is now good and we can move on to Android and actually do the same by clicking on Fix All. There we go, at this point there is only one remaining issue that has no fix. This is just something related to one post-processing effect that is being used. And you can actually just ignore it, or if you really want to remove this one, you can simply go to the settings, then to PC renderer, and here you can right click on screen space ambient occlusion and select remove. Now, if we go back to the project validation and that we save our project with Ctrl S, you can see that there is no more issue. And there you go, this means that our project is now well configured for XR. At this point, we have installed the Unity XR Interaction Toolkit, our project is well configured, so the only thing left is to get started on building our VR player. Okay, so to build our VR player, let's close the project settings. And what we can do is actually select the main camera and press on delete to remove it. Because we are going to add another main camera, but this time using the Unity XR Interaction Toolkit. To quickly set it up, we can right click on the hierarchy, go to XR, and then select XR Origin VR. We can actually rename this one VR Player, and we can reset its position to 0, 0, 0. Okay, so as you can see, this VR Player is a bit the same as what we did earlier. We have a main camera that contains a track pose driver to follow the headset movement. But thanks to the Interaction Toolkit, we now have on the parent the XR Origin component. With the XR Origin component, we have some new settings to control the camera. For example, here the tracking origin mode, which can apply a certain offset to the camera position. For example, in my case, I will set it to floor, which will make sure to use the height of the player into account. And this is what we want in our case. And there it is. If I click on play, As you can see, the camera still works with the VR headset, but now it also takes my height into account, and it feels like the plane that we added earlier is at the ground level in real life too, which is awesome. So now that we have made the setup for the VR headset, let's do it too for our controllers. Okay, so let's leave play mode. And to take into consideration the controllers in our XR rig, let's first right-click on the camera offset and select Create Empty. This will create an empty child object for the camera offset. A child means that if the parent moves, the children will move as well, which is what we want with the offset. We can rename this empty game object and add, like we did before, a track pose driver. But this time we will use the second one, the track pose driver input system. Finally, I'm going to select the left hand game object and press on Ctrl D to duplicate it and rename this one right hand. Okay, at this point, the last thing that we need to do is set up the different position, rotation and tracking input. To do so, we can select, for example, the left hand first, click here on position inputs and select use reference. Now we can click on the right side here and start browsing into one of the input action. I will talk more about the input action in the next video, but for now, let's simply search above XRI left/position and select this one. Beautiful. Now let's do the same for XRI left rotation and finally use reference, and this time with XRI left tracking state. Okay, now this will make sure that the left hand game object will follow the position, rotation and tracking of the left controllers. Now let's do the same for the right hand. Use reference, XRI right position, use reference, XRI right rotation, use reference, XRI right tracking states. There you go. Now this will mean that both our left and right hand will follow our controllers, but to quickly test our result, let's simply select both our hands by pressing on the Control key, right click, go to 3D object and select cube. As you can see, this will create a cube children for both our hands. We can select again both of this cube with the Control key, set the scale to 0.05 on all axes. And if we cannot see the cube, we can maybe click here and start reducing the 3D icon size. Then we can select both our cube and right click on box collider and remove them. And here we go. Now if I click on play, ta-da! It now works! We can see cube that are following our hands, which is awesome. And there you go, this shows you how you can create a VR player that not only can render a VR theme through a camera, but also follow both positions of our controllers. Now maybe one more thing that I can share to you guys here is that if you really don't like this cube, and I can understand why, we can quickly remove them and add instead beautiful controllers. So for this, let's simply select both of this cube, press on delete, and if we go to samples, XR Interaction Toolkit 3.2.1, starter asset, prefabs, controllers, we should see here both the XR controller left and the XR controller right. These two prefab will let you display some controllers under the player's hand, and actually there is a controller animator script on this controller prefab that will allow us to kind of move the different controller based on the player's input. And that will be something that we will also see in the next video when we will try to animate some hands. But in the meantime, if you want to use these controllers, you can right click on the transform, copy component, then drag the XR controller left under the left hand. This will add the prefab under the left hand, and now you can right click on the transform, paste component value to reset the position and rotation to its default value. Now we can do the same with the controller right, so right click, copy component, drag it under right hand, right click, transform, paste component value, and there you go. Now both our XR controllers are under the left or right hand, and they both have this transform value that we want. And there you go. Now if I click on play, as you can see, it works. We can now see, instead of cube, beautiful controllers following our movement and even following our input, which is awesome. Okay, so before finishing this tutorial, I really want to address one question, and this question is how to test a VR game. Because I promised to you guys that if you have a VR headset but not a PC VR headset, or that you don't have a VR headset at all, there is a solution to test what we just made. Of course, you don't need to actually reproduce this step right now if you do have a PC VR headset working with this scene, but just in case, let me show you how you can test our project without it. So the first solution is to build our game. To do so, we can go to File, Build Profile, and this is where you can actually build our application. To build our application, we can go to the scene list, remove the scene that we had before by right-clicking, going to Remove Selection, and then clicking on Add Open Scene to add the main VR scene that we are working on right now. Now, at this point, you can either build for PC VR on Windows, or if you have an Android device like the Meta Quest, you can select it here and then click on Switch Platform. Okay, so once you switch the platform, the next step to build is to plug your VR headset on your computer with a USB-C cable, for example. And once that's done, you can select here and you should see your device. In my case, it is an Oculus Quest 3 that I can select. And if you cannot see your device over there, it means that maybe your device is not in developer mode. In the case of a MetaQuest headset, you can actually enable developer mode through the mobile app quite easily. And if you are using another headset, just Google it, it should not be that hard. And there we go, once that's done, we can simply click on Build and Run. And there it is. Now, after waiting a little bit longer, our application is now built and I can play it directly on my VR headset without the need of Unity. This is of course what you need to do at the end of your project, or if you want to share it to your friends. But of course, this is a bit slow if you want to simply debug your application or test it frequently. So I think that a better solution that even works without a VR headset is to use the XR Simulator. To use the XR Simulator, you can simply go to Windows, Package Management, Package Manager, go to In Project. There you should see the XR Interaction Toolkit that we downloaded previously. And if we go to Samples and that we scroll down below, you should see here the XR Interaction Simulator. We can import it, close the Package Manager window. And now if we go to Asset, Samples, XR Interaction Toolkit 3.2.1, XR Interaction Simulator, you should see here the XR Interaction Simulator that we can drag in our project. And there you go. Now, if I click on play, as you can see, I can move without even having a VR headset. So with this XR Interaction Toolkit, you can actually simulate the input of a VR headset simply with a mouse and a keyboard. That's awesome. For example, I can move up or even down. I can rotate with the right click, and I can even simulate some input, as you can see from the right controllers. Now, if you want to learn more about this XR Interaction Simulator, I will also leave some documentation in the description down below. And if you simply want to get to the simple VR testing, as before, you can simply disable it and it will play your VR application normally. And there it is, guys. We have now succeeded to build our own VR player from scratch. Now, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. In the next one, I'm going to show you how to detect input of a VR controllers and use it to create this very cool hand present. So, if you haven't already, subscribe and like this video to not miss the next one. You can find the source code, support the channel and have access to exclusive content on my Patreon. So join us, the link is in the description. Thank you for watching till the end and see you very soon. Bye bye!